Hello again, and welcome back to A House Upon the Rock, Forging an Unshakable Marriage. My name is Wayne Hudson, and for the past 24 years, I've had the great privilege of serving as a biblical counselor at the Home of Grace in Van Cleve, Mississippi. This podcast is a part of that ministry, an opportunity to explore the blueprints God gave us in His Word to build marriages, families, and lives that are truly unshakable. I'm honored that you've chosen to spend this time with me. Today, we're going to talk about a quality that every single successful marriage must have. We're going to talk about resilience. Now, some of you might remember the old Timex watch commercials from the 60s. The pitchman, John Cameron Swayze, would put those watches through the wringer. They'd strap one to the propeller of an outboard motor, run another through a dishwasher, even throw one off the top of a Ferris wheel. And at the end of every single commercial, he'd hold up that watch, still working, and say that famous line, "It takes a licking and keeps on ticking." They were proud that those watches were so resilient. So what does that word even mean? The word resilient means to spring back into shape, to be elastic, and to have the ability to recover after being pressed. When a marriage has a setback, it's able to spring back into shape. It can recover after being pressed. How do couples do that? It takes commitment, maturity, and a whole lot of determination. You know, if it weren't for marriage, men would go through life thinking they had no faults at all. Today, we're going to look at 7 characteristics of these resilient, keeps-on-ticking marriages, taken from an article in Marriage Partnership magazine. Number 1, resilient couples don't fall prey to misconceptions about marriage. So many people walk into marriage thinking things like, "Oh, it'll all just work out somehow. We love each other, and that's enough." Or, "We're not going to have the problems other couples have." One of the biggest misconceptions that diminishes resilience is this mistaken idea that a good marriage equals a calm and peaceful one. The article gives a case history of a couple, Robert and Sheila. In just 10 years of marriage, Robert had 5 different jobs. Sheila had a miscarriage. They went through 5 harsh financial seasons, moved 4 times, and had 2 boys who were constantly testing their patience. On top of all that, they came from completely different family backgrounds. Sheila's parents were divorced, while Robert's were still together after 40 years. Robert nailed one of the great Christian misconceptions about marriage when he said, "We had no idea how difficult marriage would be." If you listen to people at our church talk about their marriages, it would be easy to believe that nobody has been through what we've experienced. Friends, the truth is, the best of marriages have problems. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 7, "Oh, those who marry will face many troubles in this life. We should expect difficulties, yet take steps to prevent them." Number 2, resilient couples find help when they need it. So many couples try to go it alone. They try to deal with their issues without any outside help from a trusted biblical source. And let me tell you, couples that try to make it all alone usually wind up in one of 2 places: a dead marriage or divorce court. It always amazes me that people will live with what seem to be irreconcilable differences when help is so readily available. We'll go to a doctor for a physical illness in a heartbeat, but we won't see a counselor until it's often too late. Proverbs 24:6 says, In a multitude of counselors, there is safety. Number 3, resilient couples remember the good things. When I'm in a counseling session and a couple is struggling, I'll often ask them to share some good qualities about their spouse, and I'll hear things like, "He's a good father," or "He's patient. He puts up with my quirks," or "I love how loyal and passionate she is. I know her heart's in the right place." The idea is simple. Shift the focus from the negatives to the positives. Resilient couples choose to focus on the good instead of camping out on the bad. As Philippians 4:8 says, read, "Whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Dwell on the good." Number 4, resilient couples accept their differences. Remember Robert and Sheila? Sheila had a tendency to overtalk everything, and if she felt Robert didn't get it, she'd get angry. She told their counselor, "When I try to talk to Robert, he always seems to run and hide. He'll either collapse in the recliner and be sucked into the television, or he'll retreat to the computer room." Then Robert responded, "She has an opinion about everything, and when I don't engage, she gets heated, so I retreat. Then she either yells or clams up." The truth is, men and women have different needs. Guys, we want to feel competent and respected. Men are like dogs. We need 3 things: someone to feed us, play with us, and occasionally say, "Good boy." For women, the key is to feel valued and cherished. When a man really listens to his wife without trying to fix her, he'll be amazed at how well she responds. Robert noticed that as he listened intentionally to Sheila, she actually talked less. Sheila said, we're not the same, and I'm starting to appreciate the fact that it's a good thing." Number 5, resilient couples develop an internal focus of control. Sheila and Robert shared about a time he had lost his job. At first, they lashed out at each other, but they finally decided to focus on the possibilities. Robert said, "We believe God can and will help us work things out, but it's tough." They were committed to the process. They focused on what they could control: their faith, their attitude, their commitment, not the external circumstances they couldn't control. This is a lesson we see played out every single day at the Home of Grace. Men and women come to us whose lives have been completely controlled by external things: drugs, alcohol, destructive relationships. But through the power of Jesus Christ, they learn to develop an internal focus. They learn that they can't control the world around them, but they can control their response. They learn to take responsibility, to manage their emotions, and to trust God with the results. If you or someone you know needs to find that kind of freedom, I urge you to visit us at homeofgrace.org or find us on Facebook. Number 6, resilient couples manage their emotions. Robert admitted he can be a control freak, while Sheila is a free spirit. After Sheila's 4th overdrawn check, Robert had had enough, but instead of blowing up and withdrawing like he used to, he took a different approach. He waited a day or 2 so he could calm down. By having a measure of control over his emotions, he could talk to her in a calm, rational way, and they were able to resolve their money issues. Ephesians 4 says, "Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your wrath." And number 7, resilient couples reinterpret past failures. In other words, they look at past mistakes to make positive, life-changing applications. Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that all things work together for good to those who love God." Matured Christians learn that nothing comes into our lives that God hasn't sent our way. That means we have to look at our problems from a spiritual perspective, not just a secular one. Ladies, your husband is not your adversary. Men, she is not your enemy. You are on the same team, warring against evil. Jesus himself said, "A house divided against itself will not stand." How could a marriage ever be resilient? How could it ever spring back if the husband and wife are not a team? There will be times you have to stand shoulder to shoulder against your extended family, against your friends, and even against your own children. Problems are not our enemies. They provide us with greater opportunities. They promote our spiritual maturity. They prove our integrity. And they produce in us a sense of dependence on God. Divorce is the path of least resistance, and it leads to a pit of remorse and regret. But when you learn to be resilient, you learn to spring back, to recover, and in the process, you'll be learning to be happy. You'll be learning how to take a licking and keep on ticking. You've been listening to A House Upon the Rock. Join me next time as we continue to discover how to build a marriage that lasts. Until then, may God bless you.